Today's tutorial is for our check the box half pack quilt. I'm going to give you some extra guidance, ideas, hopefully some inspiration for while you're putting this quilt together. The first thing you're going to need in order to get started is a half pack. If you do not know what a half pack is, this is what it looks like. It is 5 half-yard cuts of fabric. It's already been coordinated for you, so there's no worries about what matches with what. And it also includes a pattern with your purchase. Now, in order to do this tutorial today, you will need a half pack and you will need to select the check the box pattern in order to do this. There are exact sizes and specifics in the pattern that I will not be giving during this tutorial, so you will need to have that pattern to accompany this tutorial in order to make this quilt. So if you need to purchase a half pack, you can purchase these at any of our 120 dealers throughout the US and Canada. You can find those listed on our website, sassysunflowerquilts.com, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description as well for this video. And when you go onto our website, you'll choose at the top of the page the Find Half Pack Shops. On that page, you will find everything organized by state throughout the US and Canada, and you can see if there's one close to you. If there is not a half pack dealer close to you, there are also one-click buttons all over this page that take you directly to the location on each of the shop's websites where they sell half packs. It'll say half packs online. You just click any one of those and you'll be able to see all the different places that half packs are available. So you go ahead and get your half pack fabric kit. You select the check the box pattern to go with it. And then you will also need to collect just a few supplies. Of course, you'll need your sewing machine and general sewing supplies. Otherwise, I like to use a ruler that is a 24-inch ruler because the first cuts that you're going to be making are on a half yard, the full half yard folded. So it just makes it a little bit easier if you don't have to scoot the ruler when you're making those cuts. I feel like it makes it a little more accurate. This is a really nice ruler. It's got 24 inches by 8 inches, which is a little bit bigger than normal. And so I like that quite a bit. Also, I like to use a smaller ruler for my smaller cuts. And I'm using, for this one, it's a 14 by 5 inch. And you can kind of see these rulers have a bit of a sparkle to them. I got these from Mormino at a expo that I was at several years ago. And the glitter doesn't have anything to do with the cuts or anything, but it sure does make it pretty and fun. And I like pretty and fun. So if you were looking for a ruler like this, or you wanted to get you some really pretty fun rulers, I will go ahead and link the Mormino website to the description as well, so you can easily find those. She does sell and ship those throughout the US, I believe, and Canada. And the other thing you're going to need is you're going to need a rotary cutter. I'm going to be using a 45 millimeter for this. And I always encourage you to put in a new blade before you start cutting a new quilt. I just think it gives you better cuts and you're less likely to have those edges that are kind of tattered and frayed and raggedy. All right, so what we're going to do first is gather our supplies and then we'll get started. All right, I have selected a half pack from the Untamed line of fabric by Tula Pink. It's got flowers, polka dots, and some checks that I think are going to look absolutely wonderful as a check-the-box half-pack quilt. A couple of things that I want to point out on our pattern before we get started. The very first thing it says is to read all the instructions before starting. That is important with any quilt pattern that you are attempting, but especially with a half-pack quilt. There is very minimal waste with these patterns. We are making a quilt that is 46 by 57 and we're doing that with just 2.5 yards of fabric. So be sure and pay attention to everything that is written in this pattern before you get started. Also, we do not recommend you ever pre-washing your fabrics before starting a half pack quilt. There is no reason to do that. And also, if you have ever made any of our other half pack patterns before, you will notice that there is a little bit of a difference with this one. With our other patterns, they ask you to identify your fabrics with A, B, C, D, E, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before you start. And then instructions are given for each individual fabric and how they're cut. With this pattern, all the fabrics are cut in the exact same way. So that makes it really easy. Now, does that mean that you can cut all of them layered up, all 5 fabrics? Technically, yes. I would not recommend that unless you are really, really confident in your cuts and you have a 60mm rotary cutter with a brand new blade, because when you have just one layer, it's a little bit easier to get through all the layers, and it's up to you how you do that. I will be doing it individual layers. So what that means is one fabric at a time. All right, the first thing that it asks you to do in the pattern is to press out all your fabrics. You keep them folded, but any creases that might be in them or wrinkles, go ahead and press those out. You'll place the fold of this fabric up along the top of your cutting board, and the salvage will be down along the bottom. Then you'll go ahead and get your extra long ruler and have a look at both the diagram and the cutting instructions that are in the table on the pattern. There will be 5 cuts that you're going to make, and you will be getting out of that 1 wide strip and then 4 smaller strips. All right, so go ahead and have a look at the pattern. It'll give you all the dimensions of exactly how wide those need to be, and we'll go ahead and make those cuts. All right, so I have made my 5 cuts, and what that is giving me is 1 wider strip and 4 strips that are the same size. This little extra strip is just that. It's extra excess. We're not going to need it for this pattern. You can set it aside and use it for another project or put in your scrap bin. All right, the next thing I like to do is I like to take all of these strips over to my ironing board, and I like to press out that fold. And the reason I do that is just because since we're going to be making our cuts and our subcuts on these strips in a single layer, it just makes it lie flat, and I feel like it's going to help me make my cuts a little more even. So I would encourage you to do that, and then I'll show you how we're going to subcut these. All right, so we're going to start with our wider strip first, and that's how we start in the pattern. There's instructions in the table on the pattern that tell you exactly how wide to cut your pieces. You'll notice that the width of fabric is referenced in the pattern, and what that means is from one salvage edge all the way across to the other salvage. We did not cut these salvages off before we started cutting our strips. We will go ahead and cut those off now. And as with all of our patterns, we do not recommend hacking a whole lot off with the salvage. I take and I barely cut, just barely cut that salvage off. And then I start my cuts from there. So with this, go ahead and cut off your salvage. And then it's going to have you with this wider strip, it's going to have you cut 4 squares and then 4 smaller rectangles. All right, so go ahead and do that with that one. And then we're going to look at the next instructions, which are for the subcutting of your smaller strips. For 2 strips, and I like to do these one on top of the other, so I make sure that I'm doing them exactly the same. It says take 2 strips. Okay, we'll cut those salvages off. And from these 2 strips, we're going to cut 3 larger rectangles and 1 medium-sized rectangle. All right, we'll do that with those 2 strips. And then with the next strip, you're going to just do 1 strip, again, cut off the salvage, and then from this one, you will cut 2 longer rectangles and 2 smaller rectangles. And with our final strip, you will take that and you will cut 2 smaller rectangles and 3 medium-sized rectangles. All right, and again, all of those sizes are listed in the table on the pattern, so it's very clear exactly what sizes you need to cut. And I will show you here in a minute. I'll get all of mine cut, and I will show you in a minute how I like to organize these to keep everything straight. So once I get all of my squares and my rectangles cut, I like to put them in order, put all the sizes together. You should end up with 4 squares, 8 smaller rectangles, 5 medium rectangles, and 8 large rectangles from each one of the fabrics. Okay, so I've just done the first one for you. This would be a good time for you to pause the video and go ahead and get all of your squares and rectangles cut. With each one, I'd encourage you to go ahead and put them in order so that all of your sizes are together, because it's going to make the next step, which is block construction, a lot easier. All right, I've cut all of my 5 fabrics and I've got them all sorted so that like sizes and like fabrics are together. I end out with 20 total squares. There are 4 from each of the fabrics. I've got 40 large rectangles, which is 8 from each of the fabrics. I've got 40 of the smaller rectangles, 8 from each fabric, and then I've got 5 of each of the medium rectangles from each fabric, which gives me a total of 25 of this size. Now, the first thing we're going to do is actually take the medium ones and set them aside, because we're going to use those later for our border. We just want to get those out of the way because the only ones we're using for our main block are these 3 sizes. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sort all of our fabrics, all of our pieces, our different rectangles and squares, into 5 sets. And the way I like to do it, and you may have a better way, but this is how I do it, is I divide all of the long strips into sets of 4. Okay, so you have 2 sets of each of the color fabrics. So 2 of each, so you've got 4 here, 4 here. Then I take the shorter strips and I take 4 of each of those and put like fabrics together. So I've got 4 small ones with 4 longer pieces here, same here, and so on for all the fabrics. Then what I do is I take, make some room here. I take my squares and I pull them in and I decide what I want to go with this as my center block. So you're going to choose 2 of your fabrics. Obviously, you don't want to choose this particular one because you want there to be a lot of variance in your blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one for this one and this one. Okay. For this one, I'm going to use this one and this one. This one, I'm going to use this one and this one. All right. This one, I don't want to use the same one, so I'm going to use this one and this one. And then the last set of blocks, I'm going to use this one and this one. So there will be there'll be 3 different fabrics in each of your block sets. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Lay out all of your strips so you have the sets of 4 and 4, and then go ahead and take your squares and sort the fabrics into each of your 5 sets. Here is what all of mine look like. You can see all of those. Yeah, these are what mine look like. And if you decide, you know, that you want to switch a couple things around, that's totally fine. It's up to you. But get them to where you like the way they look. And then what I do is I go ahead and I take some of these fabric clips and I just clip the sets together Because you know what? Once you go to all the work of getting these exactly how you want them and all the cutting and all of the things, you don't want to be moving them and have them get separated and then you don't know what you were planning on doing. So go ahead and make your little sets, clip them together in some way or pin them together, and then we're going to go ahead and build our blocks. All right, I am going to start with this block set. Okay, so just to go over what we've got for each set. We've got 4 of the squares. We've got 4 of the smaller rectangles and 4 of the large rectangles in the same fabric. And a second set of 4 and 4 of the smaller and the larger in the same fabric. Okay, and that's what we're going to use to build our block. And all 4 of these blocks are going to be the same. Okay, so if you look at the diagram, there's a diagram on the pattern so you can see exactly how to do this. You start with, let me scoot these a little bit. We start with our block. Okay, then we take one of the small strips or rectangles, whatever you want to call them, a second small strip. Okay, so we sew these together and then these together, so that's all one piece. Then we take one of the large rectangles and the other color and put it on the side. Now when you get these sewn, and I'll show you how this looks, we'll take it over the sewing machine. When you account for the seams here, this will fit perfectly next to this when you stitch this on. So this is the general setup of what this looks like. All right, so we're going to sew this to this square, then we're going to sew this rectangle to this rectangle, then we're going to press it, then we're going to come back in and we're going to sew this long rectangle here and this long rectangle here. And as you can see, I have a plan with this, right? I am doing the same fabric strip on the edge of this square. So I'm starting with this right next to this square. When I add these ones on the outside, I'm adding that same one that's closest to the square first, and then the outside one is the same as the outside one here. All right, let's take it over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how it looks. All right, so this is what your finished block looks like. All of the blocks in this quilt are exactly the same. We're just switching the fabrics. You will make 4 blocks that look exactly like this in this set. So every single one in this set will look the same. All right, and we'll go ahead and clip those together again so that we can keep all of those together. We'll grab our next other 4 sets actually, and we will put them together one set at a time, and then clip them together when they're done. Then we'll come back and I'll talk about all the different possible layouts for this quilt. All right, so I've got all of my block sets put together. I've clipped them all so that I have 4 of the exact same blocks in each set. Okay, so I've got 5 sets of 4 that are all the same. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to put the assembly together. What you're going to do is we're going to look at figure B first on your pattern, and what that shows you is that you are going to take 2 blocks of your first set, put the squares together, so turn them so the squares are together, and then go ahead, right sides together, stitch them, and it's going to give you a two block set. Okay, sew that together and set it aside. Take the other 2 blocks from that very same first set, sew that together as well, and set it aside. Those are finished. Okay, then for figure C, this is the remainder of the blocks. You will make 1 block out of each of the other 4 sets. Okay, and the setup for this block is that you're going to put all of the squares to the center. Okay, and we're going to sew this square to this square, this one to this one. We'll press the seams, and then we'll sew the top set to the bottom set. So you will have a great big old square with a square. It looks like a square in the middle when you join all of these 4 blocks together. Okay, so as you can imagine, there is more than one way to put this quilt together. There's more than one correct way to put this quilt together. One of the ways is exactly how I've described, with using all of the same quilt blocks in the same 4 block. There are other ways to do that. You can make this look like a checkerboard. You can make this look scrappy. There's just so many different things that you can do, and so many ways you can be creative with the way you put this particular block together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you several of the different ways that these exact blocks can be put together, and the different looks that you can get before you go and sew your squares together. Remember those medium-sized blocks that I had you set aside at the beginning of the video? Well, grab those because we're going to need them in order to put together our border. The instructions for putting together the border is that you are to put your fabrics in whatever order you choose. It's up to you. Be creative. I am taking, since these 2 are the brightest, I'm trying to keep them separated, so I'm gonna put mine in order like this. All right. Then I'm going to sew them end to end. So I'm going to sew this one, slide them up. I'm going to sew this one to this one, using 1/4-inch seams, of course, then this one to this one, this other brighter one, and then lastly, this one. And then when I get there, I'm going to start back over at the beginning and sew this one, and then this one, and so on. Okay, so what you're going to have as you sew these end to end is a really long border. And that's what we want. Go ahead and take it to your ironing board, press those seams, and you're ready to put your border on the quilt. When you put this border on the quilt, you will put it on starting with the top, sew it at 1/4 inch all the way across the top, press out the seams, trim it carefully, and then start on the right side of the quilt. Go down the right side all the way to the end, trim it, press it, sew along the bottom, trim, press, and sew along the left side. And that's it. You're done with your very first Check the Box quilt. I hope you enjoy this tutorial and you enjoy making our Check the Box quilt. There's so many different variations of how this can be put together. We can't wait to see what you do. Please tag us either on Facebook or Instagram when you post your pictures of your Check the Box. We are at Sassy Sunflower Quilts on both Facebook and Instagram, and we look forward to seeing what you make. Have a great day and happy quilting.